Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 2nd of April. Well, we followed through with the weakness readings that we were seeing here with the cyan moving above green, green dipping, and then it continued obviously now below red. Came back to the key threshold to 2505, supported right on the 23%. We dipped slightly below it and then came right back up to that 2460 range, which is what we're seeing support off of right now, and pressure up against at that 2505 still. So it's playing pretty consistent within that. Should we expect more weakness and further breakdown? Well, check out everything else is continuing lower. You're flat on the gold. There's not a whole lot of impetus for huge move to the upside. That said, we're already up 36, so that's pretty significant, but it doesn't mean so much when you're off 115, 120. So this is that volatility range that's been exciting and fantastic to play with. From an NQ standpoint, it hit the 38 and is retracing back to the 23 as well. So a little bit more consistency within them, but of course you get a bigger dynamic move when there's a range between them. This has been in a short signal for a lot longer, right after the big pump. It began to break down and it was pretty clear from there. Now you have the actual crossover of steel. Below the cyan, is a little further into the run with that cyan. Does there need to be a bit of a turn up? Not exactly yet, and even if there was, you're going to still need to see some mid-term, long-term buyers in the red and green show up by turning around, and it hasn't happened. Euro back to its session lows. The more it's realized that they're going to have to rely on pretty much the U.S. Fed to provide unlimited liquidity to Eurozone just to keep it afloat. We did see more of the anecdotal evidence from the chloroquine studies, along with the zinc and the azithromycin pack doing very well. Will that be something that changes everything? And if it does get mass use, will that quell things? We've yet to see, but if it does, that would be something significant to alter the fortunes. Oil, from its standpoint, with the flood of Saudi oil and that, the U.S. government's going to have to step in order to support U.S. shale in that. If they don't, you're going to just see a lot of that end. You want to talk about nationalism. This is one of those where if you want to protect sovereign oil production, there you have it. That's the only way you're going to maintain energy independence. Despite the fact that it's not capitalistic, blah, 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 but what have we seen that is in the last few months? Gold, it's going to bounce around here. It's still going to be a safe haven, particularly if you start to see unrest develop in other countries and that related to these quarantines and the mass restrictions, which at a certain point, and I've said this from day one, the proposed cure is not necessarily any better than the illness. So from the other day when we were doing our little counts going down, we continued to express weakness. Going into end of day, we ended up with a nice little dip that was right here in the orange, but coming off zero steel reset, that every time, at that point you get your dip up and above and then back below. Right at the start of the I'll go here at the 2563 range, hit that to the short range, and then it just collapsed down. And then we just started dealing with minute signals, particularly gold rising under the 23%. Is mostly bearish. You'll find very few examples where it doesn't, and usually it requires on those examples below 23% to have a positive shakeout. So that's kind of the guideline when you see this kind of negativity and gold rising there. If you don't have a positive shakeout, I'm not willing to press into that because it's just likely to fade. But in this particular one, coming in the end, it did start to build up, got to 50% range right there. And what you're looking at right there is the extended run that I'm working with the ABM, just to allow it to stay within what we would still consider the normal trade, because otherwise it would have come up too quickly, and you would have had this dip down. It's just a fill of the dip below the red line, and missed out on that. Is it possible to still catch the secondary signal? Absolutely. But if you still like being whipsawed around back and forth. Once we got to the peaks, we ended up with a BK signal that was a little bit earlier on this one right here. Started off okay, then dipped below the red line here, above that 50%. And then it just took one little turnaround, and that's usually the way those little bull traps take place. And that just sent it to the highs, but with the dip below the red line having been met on the next bar, didn't take long before it just was able to continue its press up to the upside. But after that, that was pretty clean coming back down. Again, here's one of those situations I'm working with right now to alleviate where we have these incremental theoretical buy signals here with the yellow. I'm not particularly excited about this kind of long in declining lows, particularly on a no reset situation. At this particular point, there was nothing about this that was going to give me a cross down below and above. So those are some of the modifications that I've been making within some of the particular candles, because we know that even like particularly on an orange, even after it comes in, usually you want to see the first pivot down of the orange on the DOC as the catalyst for the beginning of the turn up, because originally when they dip down, their first move back up is usually bearish. And it's not until it comes back down does it start to make a pop move. So we continued to see some mini rallies, and I was shorting into all of it until we got later on, because we started to see much more improvement from our shakeout. We weren't dipping below negative 13 and holding it as long as we were prior to that. So every time we were coming, we were getting nice reversals, and this is usually what you get with central bank involvement. That becomes pretty clean from an upside, because there aren't a whole lot of excited buyers out there at this particular point. Though you keep hearing about some that say, oh yeah, I'm buying all the dips here. So we'll see if they're able to contain and keep doing that. So we ended up with some just ABC action. So buy signals, dip, new buy signals. Putting in a sell right there. We've got a nice little return from the steel at this particular point. But with the dip below the red line, it'll be interesting to see if this can dip a little further. Otherwise, it's probably just going to try and make a double top formation and come back. So we'll keep an eye on it. As always, though, I will be sending out the updates that I do with the PNT2, and from there we can talk about how those changes reflect the DOC and that. So, as always, trade well. We'll talk to you later.